it's definitely something that felt like came out of left field for me. I mean, like I said, I was a little athlete kid, you know, and I thought sports was going to be my lifestyle. And like I went from playing like literally to an empty Starbucks. The only people working were the people who were behind the counter. I went from doing that to, you know, selling out theaters in like a year and a half. It's weird because I didn't really grow up in a musical family. Like my dad was a singer, but not so much when it came to instrumentation. Nobody really played any instruments. People are amazing, you know? And for me, I love writing songs about people. I get bored writing songs about myself and my own stories, you know? But man, you give me a story about somebody else and, you know, I'll sit down and try to put their story into a song for the masses to hear. I mean, sometimes you meet people in this life and you could tell by looking at their face, man, they haven't had it easy. And you can see joy in people's faces. And then when you talk to people in dialogue and you ask them about their story, you see the way their face changes. You know, so that's where I gain that inspiration. It's like, man, I want to tell their story. I want to pick up my guitar and I want to write a song that will take their story and put it into the hearts of people. And if you want to live a good life, you got to just build as many people up as you can along the way.
Your face.
On this week's episode of American Real, we bring you award-winning singer-songwriter Jared Campbell. Jared talks about his unique presentation style as he uses music as a motivational tool while performing for our future generations at school-wide assemblies. He mixes humor and story with uplifting, thought-provoking, and emotionally heartfelt music. Jared's message focuses on overcoming obstacles, anti-bullying, respect, and leadership. He takes us along for a ride on his journey of wanting to become a rock star to ultimately finding his passion through the power of music. His inspiring story gets to the core of how one can reinvent themselves in order to live out your life purpose. Now, if you're interested in finding your voice to live out your life purpose, I'd like to personally invite you to join our live tribe group and experience the power of live video. Posting live 60-second videos will help you build skills of confidence, commitment, leadership, and accountability, all while growing your network with like-minded people from around the world. You'll quickly see how turning up each day gives you more clarity, purpose, and transparency in building a better you. Join our group of high achievers while practicing to become more present and focused as you learn to value the power of your own story. Click on the link below and start your 21-day experience today. And now, without further ado, I bring to you Mr. Jared Campbell.
Thank you.
This is American Real. I am Roger Brooks, where today my very special guest is Jared Campbell, an award-winning singer-songwriter, and where for the past decade you've traveled the country performing for thousands of people in hundreds of schools. You've had the opportunity to share the stage with Gavin DeGraw, the Zac Brown Band, and even Journey. You've been featured on MTV and have been acknowledged by Billboard magazine as one of the top independent musicians in the Northeast. You put passion into your music, which impacts the lives of your listeners by experiencing joy, finding comfort through pain, and looking past obstacles toward living a better life. Jared, welcome to the show.
It's good to be here. It's an honor to be here.
Well, it's been a long time.
Yes, it has.
And I followed your career.
Yeah.
Probably since you were, I don't know, maybe a few years out of high school.
Yeah.
You came out with a bang.
Yeah.
And you were performing all over our region, and had this great sense about you. But more than anything, you put a lot of meaning in your music. And I wanted to ask you right off the bat, when did that start for you?
It's weird because I didn't really grow up in a musical family. Like my dad was a singer, but not so much when it came to instrumentation. Nobody really played any instruments, you know. So for me, we grew up in a really athletic family, and that's what I always thought I was going to kind of grow up to become. But I found music when I was in middle school, learning how to play the guitar. And once I had the guitar, I knew this is what I wanted to do the rest of my life, you know. So I always kind of had that vision that that's what I was going to do. I was going to somehow become a musician. So when I graduated from high school, I stepped out into career. I said, you know what? It's time to make music and get out there. So I started playing little coffee shops, you know, and basically playing anywhere people would invite me. So backyard barbecues and, I mean, lots of different events. And it just was it was such a passion of mine that I knew I had to just keep going. And like you said, it kind of went in a bang, it felt like, from the beginning. I mean, I went from playing, like, I always tell the story when I'm in schools to saying, like, I went from playing, like, literally to an empty Starbucks. The only people working were the people who were behind the counter. I went from doing that to, you know, selling out theaters in like a year and a half, you know, 1,500 person theaters, and touring all over the country. So it happened really fast, you know, and it felt like I was living the dream, you know. It felt like, wow, this is everything I wanted, you know, to go after. So that was kind of like the beginning stages of stepping into my career and what that was like, you know.
So take us back for a moment, though, when you first picked up that guitar.
Yeah.
Well, how did you know? Like, what were the thoughts that you were experiencing?
Well, it was the early to mid-90s. And I remember being at a friend's house, and in the back room there was a TV on. I think they were broadcasting Woodstock '94. And there was a band on stage that I had never heard of before, but I instantly made a connection with, and it was Green Day. And I looked at that band, and there were 3 guys, and I thought, maybe I could be the 4th guy, you know? So, but I didn't play any instruments. So I was just drawn to that. I don't exactly know what it was, but something drew me into the avenue of, like, I've got to get myself into music. I had a next door neighbor who was starting to play the guitar, and kind of whatever he did, I wanted to do. And so it was Christmas morning, 6th grade. I got my first guitar and never put it down. I mean, I just would come home from school every day and practice, and it became everything I was passionate about. If you could go back and ask any of my teachers, what do you think Jared is going to grow up to be? They would have told you he's going to be a musician. It was my passion, you know, right from the start.
And were you self-taught?
Pretty much. You know, I took guitar lessons for a handful of weeks just to basically learn my chords. But I realized early on I had a musical ear, so like I could listen to songs that I loved on the radio and just figure out how to play them. In fact, I remember having a friend of mine called me up, and I was a middle school kid, and he said, have you ever heard the song Stairway to Heaven? And I said, no. And he said, well, let me play it for you. And he put the phone down next to the music, and he played the song. And then he walked away from the phone, and the song's like 15 minutes long, so I'm sitting there like, wondering if he's ever coming back. But I could hear a song like Stairway to Heaven, and then just figure out how to play it, find the notes. And that's kind of the way I taught myself, was just through, you know, having that musical ear.
And why do you think that is? How come some people have that and some people don't? Have you ever thought about that?
I think God gives people gifts that kind of sometimes come out of nowhere, you know. I mean, for me, I always say anything I have comes from Him, you know. And I don't know why He chose me with this specific, you know, area of gifting, but it's definitely something that felt like came out of left field for me. I mean, like I said, I was a little athlete kid, you know, and I thought sports was going to be my lifestyle. But when music got dropped into my life, it was like, nope, this is what you were put here to do. So I don't know. I don't know why certain people click with certain giftings, but I mean, you probably see that in your own kids. They'll pick up something that they've never been involved in before, but they just have the knack right away, you know?
And then it's one thing to be able to play the instrument, but it's another to be able to put the voice to the music. So where did the voice come from, and when did you know, okay, I might have a little bit of talent here?
Well, the voice aspect was different because I was into rock and roll when I first started. You know, it's funny because like Green Day was kind of like the launch pad, but then I really got into like Led Zeppelin and a lot of different rock when I was in middle school. And I think for me, you know, I just had to kind of step out there vocally, and when I did, people were like, "Oh, that's not bad," you know? And so you kind of build confidence through just, you know, continuing to put yourself out there. And so I started singing like shortly, like when I got the guitar, you know, you learn a song from the radio. Well, you want to sing along. You don't want to just play it the whole time. So I think for me, when I just started singing, that felt natural too, you know? I could find musically what I wanted with the guitar, but I could also do the same vocally. And so it all felt natural, you know, and sometimes it's difficult to sing and play at the same time for, you know, people that start out in music. But for me, it was a natural thing. It was like I could play and I could sing right along, and it all was like kind of like the package deal, you know, it just came together. So
What were some of the initial songs that you would sing? Do you recall some of the early ones that attracted you?
Well, like I said, you know, when I first got the guitar, all I wanted to learn was, you know, some of those songs that were coming out like in the mid-90s. And of course, you had songs like Wonderwall from Oasis. And you know what I was really drawn to was the Goo Goo Dolls. Not so much their harder, you know, they have kind of that punk rock phase, but they had this whole acoustic phase that came out, the Goo Goo Dolls did. And a lot of the songs that they were putting out, I was immediately drawn to, as far as like, that's the kind of style I want to go into. So, you know, songs like Slide and a lot of those kind of like mid-90s kind of rock songs that
Which are not easy.
were coming through. Yeah, no, but they were fun, you know. And then, yeah, that I think the acoustic influence from the Goo Goo Dolls really influenced me because primarily I became an acoustic player, you know. I wasn't so much gravitated towards the rock electric guitar side of things. It was more, you know, just grabbing that acoustic guitar and being anywhere and kind of just, you know, playing that style is really kind of the foundation of where my music was. So,
And then the songwriting. So that's a whole other level. Again, you have musicians that sing, and then you have songwriters. So is that something, again, you picked up naturally?
Well, Roger, to answer that question, the first song I ever wrote was called The Psychedelic Cheese Man. So I would say it was a process, you know. That was my hit in sixth grade. But you know what? Songwriting's never come easy to me. It's been very difficult. I'm not one of those guys that can easily sit down and just write a song, you know. I'm an inspirational songwriter, you know, so I get inspired by something, and I mean, it can only take 10 minutes for a song to come out of me, but it kind of happens upon inspiration. Some of my earliest experiences with songwriting was, once again, in middle school. I had written a song, and back in the day, I recorded it on a boombox. You know, you could put the cassette in and hit record, and I recorded just me singing this song, and then I made all these tapes for my friends, cassette tapes at school, and I brought them in. I think I brought it into one of my friends, and wouldn't you know it, he took that tape and he spread it around to all the other friends. And I remember in middle school showing up to do a talent show in middle school, and I sang this original song that I had written and put on that tape. And when I got up to sing the song, all my friends knew the words, and I was like, this is awesome, you know. This is what songwriting's all about. You know, when you create something and people don't just, you know, enjoy it, but they participate in it, that's what it's about, you know. So I got a real early taste of the love for songwriting. Not that it's ever really come easy for me, but it's something that I definitely enjoy.
And how does that make you feel when you're out on stage and you could see people mouthing the words along with you? I mean, that just has to be just a tremendous feeling.
I think that's the best feeling. you know, because you can get up there and sing Sweet Home Alabama and everybody's going to sing along,
Right.
you know. But when you can get up and it's cool when somebody comes to a show and they are just dying to hear their song, you know, that I would happen to write, you know, but it's their song, you know, and they'll call it out and you'll play it and you see them. I mean, they're not just listening, they're participating with it, you know. I think that's the best feeling. Absolutely.
Now, back about a dozen years ago,
Yeah.
I wrote the book Faces
Yeah.
that you were a part of.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many people know this, but I asked you if you'd be willing to write a song for our debut of the book.
Sure.
And you did, and you wrote a song called Written on Your Face.
Yeah.
And for me, I remember you had a concert at the Forum.
Mm-hmm.
And you, I think for the first time in public, sang that song.
I think that was the first time.
Yeah, and for me, that I was kind of experiencing that same feeling with you because I was involved with the process
Right.
of you actually writing it from the beginning. So for you to be, standing up there singing that song that was part of this, small movement at the time was really special. But can you take us through the process? So someone like me,
Yeah.
comes to you, I don't know how often you do this, if ever, and said, Jared, can you write a song? You did that in just a few weeks.
You know what? I will say that when someone comes to me and says, I would like you to write a song about this, for whatever reason, the juices start flowing a lot easier than if I just want to come up with something on my own. So when you had approached me, and what's cool, Roger, is what you did back then with that book is what you're living out now. I mean, this is it on camera. You know what I'm saying? These are people's stories. That's what the whole project was about. And that was cool. And I instantly connected with that because the thing I love most about my job, I love performing and I love singing and all that and writing songs, but I love the people. I love playing a show and then talking to the people. And that's what you wanted to highlight that here in our hometown. Like, who are the people? So when you came to me and said, hey, I want this song written, instantly the wheels in my head started turning about, what this song could really be. And the whole kind of wording of our story is written on our face. A lot of times that's true, I mean, sometimes you meet people in this life and you could tell by looking at their face, man, they haven't had it easy. And you can see joy in people's faces. And then when you talk to people in dialogue and you ask them about their story, you see the way their face changes. Tell me about when your kids were born, or tell me about your favorite memory. It's written on their face. And that was kind of the basis of the song. And so, it was definitely cool for me to be a part of, and then, of course, adding the book with all the people that you had highlighted in that book. People are amazing, And for me, I love writing songs about people. I get bored writing songs about myself and my own stories, But, man, you give me a story about somebody else and, I'll sit down and try to put their story into a song for the masses to hear, So that was a really cool project for me to be a part of.
Oh, it was.
Yeah,
And we'll definitely put the song in this episode so people can hear that.
Sure.
Okay, so you do your own thing as an independent musician for several years.
Yeah.
And then at some point, your career takes a different path. Tell us about that.
Well, when I graduated from high school, I really thought that I wanted to be a rock star. And I felt like success meant getting the record deal, touring, being on the radio, being on TV. That was my mindset of where I thought I wanted to go. And when I started to step out into the world with my music, it started moving in that direction pretty quickly. I mean, I remember playing a handful of shows for major record labels coming out kind of as a showcase to kind of see where I was at and if I'd be a good fit for their label. And, like I said, playing with a lot of great musicians. I was kind of coming up in my career around the same time, guys like Gavin DeGraw and Jason Mraz, and I played with those guys. We were another great singer-songwriters, Matt Nathanson, and doing shows with those guys. It was cool because I felt like I was kind of in that circle of the singer-songwriter vibe, and that's where I thought I wanted to be. And so in the highlight of everything going really well, I heard about a young man locally, an 8th grade student who took his life. And I didn't know this kid, and even to this day I don't know his name or the story behind it. But it was like something gripped my heart, and I felt like I needed to do something. I didn't know what, because I didn't know what tools I had to work with, but I felt like I needed to do something. And so I remember basically walking into a school and talking with the principal and saying, hey, what do you think about getting all the students into the auditorium, and I'll just put on a concert for them? And I don't know why he said yes, but he said yes, right? So all these students come in this auditorium, and I put a concert on, and at the end of my concert, I really just talked about getting through the struggles, getting through the challenges of life. And after that show, I had so many young people emailing me and messaging me online saying, wow, your show just opened up my eyes to this or that. And and then it was like one school, that school told another school, and that school told another school. And now all I do is schools. I mean, high schools, middle schools, and elementary schools is primarily the only place I play these days. And that, for me, is what success is. I thought it was the record deal, but I wouldn't trade where I'm at, for any of that stuff. I love it, and I love the opportunity to really, once again, when we talk about meeting people, meet these students and hear about their lives and be able to encourage them to keep going. And if that's done through a song or through a story or through just a quick hug, at the end of a show, then it's all worth it.
And this is the project that you call the Blue Project?
Yeah, it was called the Blue Project for years, based around a song I wrote called Catch a Glimpse of Blue. And the whole basis of that song was that, listen, you walk outside, and especially around here, any old day, you're going to see clouds in the sky, And sometimes it can be so overcast that you forget that behind all those clouds is a blue sky that never goes away, never does. And sometimes in life, we have struggles and we have things that we go through. Sometimes it gets so overwhelming that we can lose hope. We can lose that sense of, is this ever going to get better? Am I ever going to make it through this, And so I called it the Blue Project because when I talked to students, I said, listen, if you focus all your attention on everything going wrong, you're going to forget about the things that are going right. And it is about the power of focus as you go through your day-to-day. And a lot of people get focused in the wrong direction. So it's kind of about, moving their eyes towards that blue. What does that blue look like for you, And I called it the Blue Project for years so it could differentiate between my normal music career of the Jared Campbell thing to the Blue Project is the school thing. But now that pretty much all I do is schools, I just go by Jared Campbell, and with the extension of what the Blue Project really was from the beginning. So
I see. And I watched on your website a video of testimonials from some of the teachers and administration and the students.
Yeah.
It was really remarkable just to hear their raw comments about how they felt, after your concert.
Yeah.
But can you walk us through what happens? What have you built here that is so special? And why do so many schools continue to bring you back year after year and expand to other districts?
I think part of it is it's not a lecture. It's not someone coming in to speak down to the students. It's a guy that walks in on stage with a guitar and says, hey, how many students are pumped I just got you out of class for a concert, and everybody's pumped. So you win them over right from the start.
Yeah.
But really, it is, I want the students to have an expectation of, wow, I got out of class for a concert. I want them to think we're here at a concert, because what they don't realize is that there's power in music. And as they sit there through the concert, they're gaining things about how to live this life, how to get through today, how to make it to tomorrow, and how to keep going, But it's done through music. When I started out, I only did high schools. I mean, I was in my early, mid-20s, so I kind of felt like their older brother at that point, And it was really amazing just to see that connection that the students were making with the songs and and different things. And I never really, at the beginning, I never did middle schools, frankly, because middle school students terrified me. But I didn't know how it would go over. So the first middle school I ever did was the school that I went to. And they had asked me to come and do my show. And I went and I did it, and it was great. And I was like, well, I can do middle schools now. So high schools and middle schools was where I started. And I think that the thing that really sparked the interest of the schools was that it was something different, and the reaction from the students was really powerful. And I mean, you could document it. I mean, you could document how kids were changing their behaviors. And I have countless of letters from students about how the songs really opened their eyes to stop making destructive decisions, to start regaining focus for who they're supposed to be. And I've even had a number of students tell me that they've stopped their attempts at harming themselves and thoughts of suicide just because they were able to make that connection. So that was really a heavy piece to what I was doing. But there was a whole nother market that I wasn't touching, and that was the elementary schools. And I really felt at the beginning, I can't go into elementary schools because everything I'd be doing would be way over the heads of these kids. So I had kids 6 years ago, twins. I mean, I didn't have them, my wife had them. And we had our twins 6 years ago. And right around the time my twins were born, you do what every new parent does. You start listening to the kids' music that's out there. And I would listen to it and I'd be like, man, this stuff sucks. I could write better songs than this, So I started dabbling with writing kids songs, and I loved it. And so I wrote a bunch of songs that really were geared around character education and being a good kid, and respect and responsibility and just looking out for people. And so I opened up the gates and said, okay, I'm going to start speaking at elementary schools and performing at elementary schools. And now, Roger, kid you not, I feel I could do more elementary schools than anything else, because you got to get them young. You got to get them while they're young. The students that are young, they're excited about life. They're excited about really anything you put in front of them, to gear them towards who they could be. Middle school, it's like that. You could see that clay begins to harden, and even more so in high school. And sometimes when it gets to high school, what happens when clay gets really hard. If you want to remold it, you got to break it down, and you got to water it and you got to rework it. And that's what happens a lot of times with young people. They grow up. So sometimes they need to be broken back into a place where they can be shaped again. But it's a challenge, So it's been a cool ride, but I enjoy every minute of it.
And it sounds like, from your words, that the gratification not only comes in the music, but the impact you're making on these kids' lives.
Yeah. The thing, I'll tell you the biggest impact I feel like that I receive from the impact on the students is when students write to me I've been doing this for a little over 10 years, but I've even had kids write to me 10 years later and say, you came to my high school. I had a kid write to me this year. You came to my high school 8 years ago, and you played this song, and I'll never forget it. And it's helped me through a situation today that I would have never known how to get through. Stuff like that. It's like, wow, okay, God put me here for a reason, So those are moments that you don't forget when they come back. And probably every teacher that's out there, when they meet a student that they had years ago that they probably forgot their name and they forgot their face because their face has changed so much, but that student walks up to a teacher and says, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be who I am today. I'm sure teachers feel the exact same way.
Sure.
Because sometimes you make an impact on people and you don't even realize it, and you do your best to make an impact, but a lot of times you don't see it instantly. You don't see the instant impact in people's lives. So when they do come back around and remind you of how your life made an impact on their life, that's really amazing.
Jared, where does your inspiration come from? Where your music is, if you stop and I've had the opportunity to listen to your music for many years, but I almost feel like it comes from another place, really. I mean, it's almost prophetic in a way, in that it's just really expansive, you know. And I know when I listen to your music, it gets me thinking about things that I normally don't think about, you know, in songs like Glimpse of Blue.
Yeah.
But where does that come from? Do you have a deep faith? Where does that stem from?
Yeah, I mean, so as I said earlier, I feel like anything that I've gotten in the realm of any kind of musical talent, songwriting ability, I totally feel like that comes from the Lord. I mean, in my life, I really stepped into that faith in God when I was in middle school, right around the same time that I was learning to play music. And really, my faith in God kind of came through music, because I felt like I came to a realization that I wouldn't have these talents if it wasn't for Him. And so really kind of surrendering myself to that as a young person was really allowing Him to be that lighthouse as I made my way through life. And I'm sure that anybody will tell you this, that when you go through life, you wander a lot sometimes. And sometimes you really get off a path that you know you should be on, but you get sidetracked. And there was a time in my life where I got sidetracked, but I always had that lighthouse, you know, and it was always showing me where I was supposed to be, you know. And so I've found that as long as I'm keeping my focus there, right, that everything else falls into place. So when I write songs, I may be writing a song not having really any understanding of what kind of impact it will make, but He knows, you know. And so I got to trust in that process, you know. And really, when it comes to the inspiration, where does my inspiration come from? I would say on just a tangible level, these days I'm inspired greatly by the lives around me, and which is cool sitting here with you, because so are you. I mean, every day that you get up, you are constantly thinking about the lives around you and how to tell their story. I do the same thing with music. I meet kids in schools that have remarkable stories. And as I listen to their story, I can't wait to go and play another school so I can tell another group of students about them. Wow. You know, I met a kid at a school. I got done playing a show, and much like you, I expressed to people, everybody's got a story. And this kid comes up to me at the end of my show, and he's a little 6th grade kid. And he says, "Hey, Jared," his name was Matthew, he had a real froggy voice. He said, "You know, I have a story." I said, "Well, what's your story, Matthew?" And he looks at me and he says, "Well, I was born without a nose." And I'm looking at the kid and I'm like, "Well, you got a nose now." And he was like, "Yeah." I said, "Do you pick it?" He said, "Every day." I said, "All right." I said, "Matthew, I'm a little confused by your story. Fill me in." And he tells me when he was born with a hole in his face. And as a 6th grade student, he's undergone 46 facial reconstructive surgeries just to have a nose, like you and me. But you know what he was doing the whole time he was telling me his story? He was smiling. And I looked at him and I was like, "Matthew, I just got done trying to bring inspiration to your fellow students." But I'm like, "You're the inspiration, man." And stuff like that, I'm like, I can't wait to go and meet a whole nother group of students that by all means don't have it easy and they're struggling through their life. But I could say, "Hey, you know what? I just met another kid who struggled, had a lot of struggles, but he's still here and he's still smiling, and his name's Matthew, and he's a rock star."
Powerful.
You know, and you know, so that's where I gain that inspiration. It's like, man, I want to tell their story. I want to pick up my guitar and I want to write a song that will take their story and put it into the hearts of people, you know, because they say where words fail, music speaks. And it's like, man, if I could take that music and stick it into the hearts of people and have them walk out this door with a story that will encourage them, inspire them, that's what it's about.
What is it about this story and the students that you've come in contact with in telling their stories? What is it about story that fascinates you, that fascinates me, and many of us? What is it about it that...
I think humans are just awesome. You know, just when you think, I feel like just when you think we can't take any more, it's like, no, we still keep going. And that's my line of work, you know, is essentially, especially with the older students, my line of work is meeting students that have just gone through so much, and they're still going, you know. And if I always look at my job as like, as if there's a marathon race, there's always those people on the side of the race holding out the water, you know, and the signs. And that's me. Like, that's what I do, you know, but they're running, you know, and I'm like, come on, you can do it. You can keep going. I just, when you meet, for instance, like when you meet people on an airplane, that's one of the places I feel like people are either like one of two kinds. When you get on an airplane, you either can't wait to talk to the person next to you, or you don't want to talk at all. It's like, let me sleep. Hopefully we'll land soon. But I find myself in the situation of essentially getting into some kind of conversation with people. And it's amazing just to sit next to someone that you've never met before, and in an hour flight, be so inspired and encouraged to go back and do what you do better because of how they did what they do better, you know? And so much like that song that I wrote with you, Written on Your Face, it was about, the beginning of the song is, today I opened up my eyes and looked into yours to see the treasures I could find that I've never seen before, you know? Those are the words. And people have treasures. They have treasures really stored up in their life stories, you know? And, but just like treasure, you got to dig it out sometimes, you know, because a lot of people, they don't show that treasure when you first meet them. You know, it's like sometimes you really just got to take the time to dialogue with people and allow them to trust you. What I find amazing is I have so many students that will see me perform for an hour at their school, and they'll come to me and say, Jared, I've never told this to anyone before, but, you know, it's like, dude, you don't even really know me, you know, but there's a connection where they're like, I'm ready to tell you my story, you know. And so I just think people's stories can be remarkable, but the sad thing about today is that we're too busy to hear them sometimes, which is the great thing about your show, because hopefully people will stop and hear them, you know. So, yeah, it's a cool way to go through life with your eyes open.
Have you found your passion?
Oh yeah, are you kidding me? You know what, I love kids. I love my own kids more than anything. I mean, they're just, my family is my treasure, you know, and being around my kids gives me inspiration on how to lift other kids up. And for me, it's, if you can get kids to be excited about life, then that's what it's about. For me, that's my passion, you know. I thought it was to be a rock star, but, you know, I hope to do this till I'm like 75, you know. Phenomenal. Maybe 80, we'll see.
So tell us your schedule. How many schools are you performing at per week, per month?
A lot of schools. Honestly, in the fall, sometimes it's 2 schools 5 days a week. In fact, I mean, we're in the month of June right now. September's already full. And I always kind of think that maybe it'll slow down, you know, maybe it'll even out, but it's been growing every year. And a lot of schools will bring me in, and I feel so blessed, you know, to be able to do what I love for a living. I mean, that is huge. I think that's everyone's dream, is to do what you love for a living. And, you know, when I walk out of a school, I have a lot of schools saying, hey, let's get you back next year. And they're already picking out dates. And so it's cool to see that revolving door of like, I just did a school this morning, and I've been doing this school for the past 5 or 6 years. Every year they bring me. And so every year I come back, the kids know the songs, and they sing them at the top of their lungs. And so it's been really busy, and it's been awesome. And, you know, I'm definitely a road dog. You know, I'm on the road a lot. It's funny because I'll see people around town and they'll say, man, are you still playing music? Because nobody hears about it. I'm not really out in the public anymore playing music. It's all in schools. But I tell them, yeah, man, I'm playing a whole lot more than I ever have in my life, you know. And I hope to kind of to bring that to a little bit more of an even balance, not be on the road as much in the years to come. So,
especially as your kids get older.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's the thing too. I could be all over the country if I wanted to, but I don't want to. I want to get in my car and drive a half hour away to play a school and come back and pick my kids up from school. I love that. That's like amazing for me. But I try to stay close to home. I try to stay in the Northeast, so I can be home in the evenings with my family. Definitely home on the weekends, and yeah, so I try to be home a lot.
So you are living the dream.
Yeah, I love my dream. The dream that. And it's weird, because it wasn't always my dream. If you had told me when I was, in high school, hey, you're going to spend your life playing in cafeterias and gymnasiums, I would have been like, what? Are you crazy? I don't want to do that. But now I wouldn't trade it for the world. It's kind of weird how your life changes over the years,
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's awesome.
You mentioned your children.
Yeah.
And your wife is a delight, Meredy.
She's awesome.
But what is it about, you mentioned this earlier, if you could expand on it a little bit more, what is it about your own kids that gives you inspiration to inspire other children?
Well, being around my own kids, I see the way kids are, in the raw element of it all, It's like, without having kids and going into schools, it was interesting to relate to young people. I felt like I could relate to the older students, high school students, because I felt like I said, kind of that older brother, maybe uncle mentality. But once I got into the elementary side of it, having my own kids really shapes a lot of what I see in other students, and basically how I can take music to help direct where other students are going. So my biggest song, and I gotta say, out of all the songs I've written, I think the #1 hit song that I've ever written is a song called The Superhero Song. And it's all about kids being superheroes in their own lives. And really, that came out of the way I looked at my son. When he was little, he just from the beginning was obsessed with superheroes. And every time I'd walk into an elementary school, you're inevitably going to run into kids with Captain America t-shirts on or Batman, and every kid wants to be a superhero. So being in that environment, even in my own house, I was like, well, that's it. I got to write a song about being a superhero. And so, for me, seeing what triggers my kids to get them excited, I wrote another song this year called Good Sport. And it's about being a good sport, Not necessarily on the field or on a court, but in your school or in your life, can you still be a good sport? My kids love to sing that song. So there's that realm of writing songs within their age group and what their age group would relate to. But then there's a whole nother side of it. Before I had kids, I would meet students and I would hear about maybe their struggles, or I'd hear about things that they go through. And I would relate to them from a whole different viewpoint as I would now. I'll give you a for instance. I met a girl at a high school, and she wanted to talk to me at the end of my show. And she sat there in this auditorium, and she told me about how her dad had passed away when she was a little girl. And I sat there and I talked to this girl, and when I was talking to her, I just kept thinking about my own daughter. And it was like, wow, this is looking at life really different now. And I hugged that girl, but it was weird because she didn't really know me other than performing at her school, and I didn't know her other than her first name. But it was kind of like I was hugging her like she was my own, and just relating to these young people, and that mindset is very different.
And that's important, Jared. Isn't our responsibility, aren't they really our own?
Oh yeah. Takes a village, right?
It does.
And that's what's hard. It's if I walk into a school, there's blanketed statements about schools. For instance, if you walk into a school, the blanketed statement might be, oh, these kids at this school are great kids, or these kids at this school are horrible. And the struggle is really not the kids. It's who's raising them and who's not raising them. And we're all in this world together, and we all need encouragement. There's a lot of parents out there that they don't understand, and they need encouragement. They don't need somebody to look down on them and point a finger at them, but they need encouragement. They need love. They need somebody to come around and just help guide them. being a parent's really hard, you know, especially when you don't feel like you have the resources, you know. And so it gets easy to look at the kids and say, well, he's such a bad kid, or she's so disrespectful or unruly. But then you got to take the bird's eye view of like, well, where did she come from? You know, what does she get when she goes home? You know, what kind of meals do they actually eat on the weekend? Do they even eat a meal at all? And that's what's, you know, I think they may not be my kids, but man, do I have a responsibility to try to give them whatever I got, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And what about at home? Do your kids like Daddy's music?
They do. It's cute. I mean, I will, I'm going to perform tomorrow night at a concert, and they're all going to come. And they'll be in the front row, and they'll be singing. And I got to play at their school, which was really cool. And so, you know, and the other thing, too, is I like to get them involved. Like, I have a real heart right now to write a song about pizza. And I'm going to need some help with that. And 6-year-olds are the perfect helpers to write a song about pizza. So, you know, so yeah, they like the music aspect, and I think they do enjoy the fact that Dad's a musician and that their friends listen to Dad. You know, it's kind of cool.
Right.
Yeah. When I walk into their school, their friends don't say, "Hey, it's Max and Mira's dad." They say, "Hey, it's Jared Campbell." Like, it's like I'm some guy, you know,
Right.
because they have my CD and they listen to the CD
Right.
and stuff. So it's cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Can you just take us through a little bit more technically on the songwriting process? I know we touched on it earlier, but tell us, what do you do? Are you sitting down with a notebook? Are you talking into a phone when you get ideas?
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah, how does that all happen?
The phone is one of the greatest innovative products to have in your pocket when you're a songwriter. Because for me, like I said, I write on inspiration, and sometimes you have no idea when inspiration's going to come. And years ago, what would happen was I would get inspired, and it always happens at night, right before bed. I'd get inspired, or I'd have a melody running through my head, and it would be awesome. And then I'd go to bed, and I'd wake up the next morning, I can't remember a thing. I've actually even had moments where I had been dreaming, and in my dream I was singing a song, singing one of my own songs that I've never heard before, but singing a song. And I remember, because I ended up writing part of this song, I woke up with the melody in my head, and I grabbed my phone and I sang the melody into the phone, and it was awesome.
That's incredible.
Oh, it's crazy. You know, and to think like, wow, this song was birthed out of a dream, you know, that's really cool, you know. But for me, I tour so much from September to June that sitting down and writing is hard for me during that time. As big of a span of time as that is, when I'm on the road so much, so when I'm home, I want to hang out with my kids, you know, and my wife, and just be home and be a husband and be dad, and same thing on the weekends. But the writing aspect is still a big part of my job. So typically what I do is in the summer, I tell my wife, I say, hey, I got to go write. And it's hard for me to write in a house where everybody's screaming. So I'll go to a park somewhere, and I'll try to go to a place where nobody else is around. And these are moments where I'm sitting down and I'm trying to force myself to come up with material, which is very hard and not natural for me. And sometimes it's just like I talked about earlier, digging for that treasure. Sometimes that's what it's like. It's a dig, and you gotta just sit. And I might sit for a couple of hours, and I may only get one verse, or, you know, maybe I'll get some kind of melody line that I can build off of. But yeah, just the technical aspect of songwriting typically for me starts with a topic, like what do I want to say? And like we said, with people's stories, like boom, there's your topic. So how do we make the colors surrounding that topic bring it to life, you know? And that's where the verses and the chorus and the bridge and all those other things that you want to say in the song, that's where they come to life, you know? So I wrote a song about a local friend of mine. He lost his leg to cancer, and he went on to become a Paralympic downhill skier, Dan Kosick. Unbelievable story. You should have him on your show. He's a rock star. His story is phenomenal. It's encouraging. It's inspiring. And I wanted to write a song about him, but I knew that it wasn't going to be some slow, melodic tune. I wanted it to be driving. Like when people listen to the song, I want them to think like, wow, look at what Dan fought through. Like, I'm going to fight through my life, you know? And so, you know, you get that aspect of what are you trying to say in the song? And then what's the song supposed to feel like? And then it's like, you know, building with Legos, you know, keep a piece at a time.
And do you have your guitar with you so you could pick it up if you need to?
Yeah. Sometimes, you know, sometimes I write songs. I've written a song before when I was out for a walk. And I didn't have my guitar, but I had my phone. I had my phone, and I would, and I wrote an entire song in my head just on this walk. And I would record the melody into my phone. But then as soon as I got home, I picked up the guitar, and I was able to play the whole thing, like bring it to life, you know. When you play long enough, you have the chords running through your mind, you know, so you kind of know. But yeah, most times, almost all the time, I've got my guitar there, and I'm just, you know, trying to work out new ideas and fresh ideas and all that stuff, you know, musically.
So you're going to write the pizza song this summer?
I hope to write the pizza song this summer, but it's got to be good, man. It's got to be like, it's got to be right up there with the superhero song. So we'll see.
So do you have a goal? Like, do you want to write 2 songs this summer, 1 song?
My goal is to write as much material as I can. But what happens with me is, like, I will perform at a school, say in the fall, and then they'll want to bring me back the next fall. So if I come back the next year, I don't want to play the same songs. I don't want to do the same show. I want to bring new material with me. So that's really what I focus on in the summer. What can I bring that's new and fresh to this school?
Yeah.
You know, I'll always play the superhero song for them, but what else can I give them? So with the age groups that I have, that high school, middle school, upper elementary school, and lower elementary school, I'll really try to get as much fresh material as I can for those groups and just bring it to life, you know, once I hit the ground running in the fall.
So do you think there's opportunity for other singer-songwriters like you to do this in other parts of the country and around the world? And is it happening, do you know, or is it pretty unique?
You know, I don't really know of many other people. I have a friend of mine who's a great dude, lives in Nashville, and he's been doing some cool things like this. But I don't really know anybody else who's out there. You know, I'm sure there's other people out there that do it, and it works. And so I definitely think it's an opportunity. But in the same respect, I feel like your head and your heart's got to be in the right place. Yeah. You know, I do what I do because I care about kids. I care about the ones I play for and that impact. I'm not trying to make a name for myself. Just today, I had a kid come up to me and say, "Man, you should go on America's Got Talent." And I've heard that a lot, but for me, I would never want that. You know, I love where I'm at. You know, and I like walking into a school where no one knows who I am, and I can have the first impression be when I step up to the mic. You know, so. But I definitely think, yeah, I definitely, there's so many creative people out there, you know, that can take music and, I mean, I'm doing it in schools, but essentially they're doing it in their circle of influence, you know. There are, you know, places where I wouldn't be able to have the kind of impact like other musicians would be able to have. Why? Because everybody listens to different style of music, you know. So music's just one of those things that I think will be let in anywhere. And thankfully they let me in schools with it. So
that's great.
Yeah.
So what's your new definition of success?
Well, I would say that for me, success is doing what you love, number one, because you can be really successful and hate everything that you're a part of. You know, I mean, you could make lots of money and be so miserable. So for me, success is not money. It's not a name. I feel like success is walking into my house at night and hugging my family and knowing that I just spent the whole day lifting other people up, you know, and now I get to be lifted up by my family, you know. But I always tell students, I say, listen, if you want to live a good life, you got to just build as many people up as you can along the way. A lot of students come to me and they struggle with being bullied, and they struggle with feeling left out and rejected. And I say, listen, if you want to be built back up, go out today and find someone that you can build up. You can sit here and you can be sad and you can be hurt, but as soon as you step out in this life to build people up, it's like gravity, it just works. You know, when you make someone else feel better, you'll feel better. And that's what success is, you know. Success is building as many people up along the way. So, I love it. It's awesome.
Yeah, and I watched in some of those testimonials, some of the students talking about bullying.
Yeah.
And that your project actually helped them
Yeah.
get over some of the things. But do you still see it? Is it still a big problem in our society?
It always will be. I tell students, I can't walk into a school and change people. I can't. I wish I could. And I wish there was a magic wand to end bullying, but there isn't. And so, yes, Roger, from when you were in school, when I was in school, the landscape now, totally different. And the biggest reason why is because of social media. Think about it. When you were in school, if you had an argument with somebody, you'd go home and at least you'd be able to forget about it for the night, you know, or you'd be able to forget about it for the weekend. You can't escape it now. If there's drama with somebody at school, man, it follows you on social media, and you can't escape it. I mean, you could have some kid 100 miles away telling you how ugly you look in your prom dress. You can't escape it, you know? You go on YouTube and you put something up there that you're really proud of, and all it takes is somebody writing a comment underneath bashing you to make you feel like maybe your work isn't worth it, maybe your talent, or maybe that thing that you really wanted to show off, like it really isn't special, because look what they said about you. There are always going to be mean people, and it's unfortunate. And like I said, I hope to open up the eyes of students to realize what their words and what their actions really can do to other people. But I think more so what I can do is look at the ones who feel rejected and left out, and just pump them so full of the knowledge of how valuable they actually are. Because I tell students all the time, your value will never change. You know, value in today's society, we look at value, our personal value as doing this, right? So, especially with social media, you go on social media and you try to get as many followers or as many likes as you can possibly get. And it somehow makes you feel like this is what your value is doing as your following is growing. But then as soon as a kid walks into school and somebody says, man, you are so ugly, it's like, whoop, well, there goes my value. And that's the way a lot of people, not just students, but people live their life thinking that this is what their value does, and that's not true. Our value stays the same, but our value is so off the charts that you can't chart it. I tell students, your value is actually priceless. And what do I mean by that? Well, here's what I mean. Out of 7.5 billion people on this earth, you're the only one of you, and I'm the only one of me. And what that means is that we can't be replaced. So to put a value on our life, it's impossible to do because we're that priceless. So when somebody makes fun of you, or when somebody tries to put you down, they'll never change your value. It's like if I had a $20 bill and I crumpled it up, it's still worth 20 bucks. If I step on it, it's still worth 20 bucks. And every kid understands that concept. And I tell them, I say, well, listen, that's just a piece of paper, but you got to think about your life. There's always going to be mean people. There's always going to be people that are going to try to cut you down. But it's like that phrase, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. I never understood why anybody would come up with that phrase. Because obviously words hurt. If somebody calls you a name, it's going to hurt you. But what that phrase, I believe, is saying is, listen, sticks and stones, that'll break my bones. That part's true. But the second part, but words will never hurt me, I believe is a state of mind that says, you know what? I know who I am. I'm not going to let other people's labels and comments determine how I see my value. And that's why I talk about Rosa Parks a lot in my schools. Because, man, she grew up in a time where she was told she was just not valuable because of the color of her skin. And it was in the midst of all that that she decided to take a stand on that bus and say, you know what? I don't care how you treat me or what you want to call me. Because I know I'm valuable, and you're never going to change that. That's really powerful. for students to hear. So bullying is a huge problem. I feel like it'll continue to be a huge problem. However, we can combat that through encouraging the world around to understand how valuable people actually are and how you'll never change that value. And the only reason why people bully other people is because they're insecure about themselves.
Right.
They think, hey, if I can bring people down along the way, that'll somehow push me up to the top. But that's never how it works. Because they're looking for validation. And a lot of times students think, well, they can get that validation through their friends, thinking that they're funny if they make fun of somebody, or there's that power struggle. They'll think I'm powerful if I can push them down, but that's not how it works.
So what's next for Jared Campbell? Where do you see yourself in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years from now?
Well, I hope to be doing what I'm doing for as long as I can do it. I played at a school in Long Island, and everybody told me that I reminded them of another gentleman that comes to their school, and he comes to play music for all the students. And I said, well, tell me about this guy. And they said, well, he's like in his 70s. And I said, thank God, because that's where I want to be when I'm in my 70s. I just want to keep going. I don't want to stop. I don't want to stop. I want to keep making music. I want to keep telling people stories through music. And, I don't exactly know where I'll be in 5 to 10 years, but I hope it's, along the same path of where I'm at now. I do feel a calling on my life when it comes to ministry and just within my church and with my church family to grow in that aspect for sure. And so I think in some realm I'll have kind of more of a footprint in that area, but always just want to be coming back to these schools. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You like putting smiles on people's faces.
Absolutely. And the superhero song does that, so.
I can't wait to hear that one.
Yeah.
Jared, if you were to make a phone call to your 20-year-old self and go back and give 20-year-old Jared some advice, what might you say?
That's a great question. Because I made a lot of mistakes in my 20s because I was chasing a form of success that I thought I wanted. I feel like in some way, shape, or form, I'm doing this now. I'm not talking to my 20-year-old version of myself, but I'm talking to a lot of 18-year-old versions of a lot of other people. And really what I tell them is I say, hey, listen, you've got to find that thing that you're passionate about, which I did find at a very young age. But then you've got to be focused on the right things. When I was in my early 20s, thinking that I wanted to be a rock star, there's a lot of things that go along with the rock star lifestyle. Thankfully, in my mid-30s now, a big part of the rock star lifestyle is the drug aspect of how that plays out in rock and roll. And in my mid-30s, I've never touched a drug in my life. Never even tried it. So I'm thankful for that. But, for me, I told this to my wife. I said, if I could go back to when I was a little kid and show my little kid version of myself what my wife was going to look like someday and what my family was going to look like someday, I'd say, shoot, man, I want to grow up right now, And so if I could go back to my 20-year-old version of myself, I'd say, hey, keep your eye on the prize, right? Because sometimes we just get off course on what the prize really should be. And that comes back to our talk about what success really is. Every kid I ask in elementary school, what do you want to be when you grow up? They tell me, so many kids will tell me they want to be famous, right? They want to be a famous athlete or musician or whatever it is, because we think that that's what success is, but no, you got to keep your eye on what really matters. It's living a good life. It's loving the people around you. It's giving of yourself to others, So I would really try to, kind of drill that into my mind at that age. I don't know if I would listen at 20, but I would hope I would,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, Jared, this has been Wonderful to catch up with you.
Yeah.
It's been too long. I thank you. I know how busy you are. It took us a while to get together. I
Yeah.
know, but I really want to thank you for being here today, for sharing your story. But before we let you go, I have one last question.
Sure.
And that is, what do you want your legacy to be?
You know, as far as what I'd be like remembered for, in that aspect, I don't know. I think I would want my legacy to be a legacy of caring for others along the way, loving my family, my wife and my kids deeply, and letting them know that even though there's a lot of other people that I may tend to in this life, that, you know, my family is my core. Leaving that legacy behind for them to understand how much they're loved and appreciated. But really just, I think about what I was voted in high school. I was voted in high school, you know, they have class notables in the yearbook, and I was voted most friendliest. And I wouldn't mind that legacy, you know. I still wouldn't mind being voted most friendliest, you know. But just making people feel good, you know.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Jared Campbell, you are a rock star.
Thanks, man.
You're living it.
So are you.
And we appreciate it. Thank you. We
got it.
appreciate you coming on. And thanks so much for being who you are.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks.
Great to see you, Rod. Today I opened up my eyes and looked into yours to see the treasures I could find that I've never seen before. 'Cause you possess a storyline and you're longing to be read. And hidden deep within your eyes is a life that you've led. 'Cause there's a way that you speak to me without saying a word. And your song owns a melody, oh, that I have never heard. There's a light in your smile that's leading the way, and all the dreams that you're chasing are written on your face. Well, I see this life in front of me, these stories in a soul. It's a perfect opportunity, yeah, to take the time to know and appreciate the little things that make you who you are. Uncover all the mystery that's hiding in your heart. 'Cause there's a way that you speak to me without saying a word. And your song owns a melody, yeah, that I have never heard. There's a light in your smile that's leading the way, and all the dreams that you're chasing are written on your face. Yeah. 'Cause there's a way that you speak to me without saying a word. And your song owns a melody, that I have never heard. And there's a light in your smile, that's leading the way. And all the dreams that you're chasing, they're written on your face. And all the dreams that you're chasing, they're written on your face. All the dreams that you're chasing are written on your face. Thank you.